Hi, I'm Ryan Szymanski, curator for Battleship New Jersey Museum and Memorial. And today we've got another museum-y episode for you. What happens when your museum ship reaches a point that it can no longer have guests on it? Obviously, we're trying to put this off for as long as possible. That's why we're preparing for a dry docking. So this seems like a weird thing to think about. However, New Jersey is one of 3 military vessels that had been preserved as museum ships in the state of New Jersey, and she's the only one still afloat. It's also been pretty public recently that ships like Klamagor, the Russian submarine that was in San Diego, and Hidden Sea and Battleship Cove have recently had to be scrapped because those hulls have reached the end of their usable lives, and the amount of corrosion on them, the amount of work it would take to restore them, greatly exceeds the museum's ability to restore them. So, what are the museum's plans for when the ship no longer exists? We don't know how long steel ships can be preserved. It's such a brand new thing that we've even tried. 1948, USS Texas is turned into a museum ship. She's the first permanently operating uncommissioned warship museum. So I've mentioned it in 1,000 videos before. We very much watched Texas to see what preservation challenges she faced, knowing that we will face them too. And one day, those challenges will get to the point that the organization operating X ship, name any ship here, will not be able to preserve that ship anymore. And we've already talked about how putting a ship on land will get you a certain amount of distance, but then the thing starts to pancake. Go watch some of our other videos if you want to hear more about that discussion. Regardless, the forces of gravity, moisture, these other features that are constantly degrading these ships will one day overcome their ability to be used as museums. Remember, they were only designed to be lasting 20 or 25 years. They, in many cases, the ones that are preserved are war-built ships. So they were built even quicker and more slapdash than they would have been otherwise. I've talked about in the past, we've looked at what Iowa has to do with their disposal. We looked at what Texas is doing with theirs. Who do we look at to emulate for turning this organization into a traditional landside museum? We look at the Battleship South Dakota Memorial. In the 1960s, when ships like North Carolina, Massachusetts, Alabama were being turned into museum ships, the state of South Dakota wanted to look at preserving their battleship as well. However, turns out a little bit difficult to get a 35,000-ton battleship to a landlocked state like South Dakota. So they could not preserve their entire ship the way, say, Massachusetts was able to. So they had the Navy, when they were scrapping South Dakota, Battleship X, they had them take off pieces that they could then display. And they set up a really great landside exhibit that both shows some of the size of the ship and how it is shaped and laid out with their front lawn, but also has original artifacts, and it sets up an institution that collects artifacts from those sailors as they are retiring or aging out and their families are looking for places to send their effects to. And so they have come up with this really great display that I unfortunately haven't had a chance to visit myself yet. The next time I'm in South Dakota, I hope to. But I really love the pictures I've seen of it. I've gotten to talk with some of their staff. I love what they're doing. And I really love that concept for preserving a ship's history, legacy, without being able to save the ship. And so it's places like that that we look for what will come in the future. And hopefully many other museums look at that as well. If you think this is a good idea and you would like to help support the South Dakota Memorial, there is a link in the description below to a contest that Shields is running for nonprofits in their operating area. And so the South Dakota Memorial has been nominated to win as much as $50,000, which is a huge amount for a museum like ours or theirs. So there's a link in the description below if you would like to go and vote for them to receive that $50,000. So all this is to say, they will not last forever. As much as I love them, one day, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, 500 years from now, these ships won't be here. So, what are our plans for interpreting these ships once we no longer have the ships? Obviously, the battleship is the core artifact in this museum's collection. It's also the building that hosts both our collection that we put on display and our collection storage, where we are now down on 4th deck up forward in some of the forward storekeeper spaces. Some museum ships, as part of their contracts, Battleship Iowa is the one that comes to mind first off, have a clause in there that say they have to keep a certain amount of money on hand to dispose of the ship when she reaches her end of life. The Navy cannot afford to take that ship back if that organization falls apart or if the ship gets to a point where she can no longer be maintained. So they have to keep a certain amount of money in the bank to scrap or reef or otherwise dispose of the vessel. Not all ships have that clause. Even New Jersey, which was turned into a museum ship barely a decade earlier, does not have that clause in our contract. But assuming we have to dispose of the ship, there's a strong chance that the organization, the Homeport Alliance, that maintains and operates the battleship will still exist even after the ship is gone. So we are planning, and planning makes it sound like we're actively planning. I would put it more as we are planning to plan. We are doing things with the thought that one day we might have to take the collection off of the ship, but we do not have any actual plans that if the ship sinks tomorrow that we take the collection off and do this. But our nebulous loose plan is 100 years from now, when the ship can no longer be preserved, my successor's successor's successor is going to take the collection off of the ship. The collection are the various artifacts that have been donated to the museum. We will also take as many usable parts off of the ship so that we can display it. So maybe that would include a 16-inch gun barrel. That's a key part of the ship. That would make a great lawn ornament out front of a traditional landside museum. Maybe we would integrate our collection in, say, a New Jersey State War Museum, or some other existing museum, or go in with other museums to form some new museum. It might not just specifically be the Battleship New Jersey. Maybe the Homeport Alliance disappears entirely, and so our collection reverts to the control of, is given to some other organization that has a similar style of landside museum. So we would take everything in our collection, everything that we can strip off of the ship, a propeller, a gun barrel, things like this, and we would set up a display. Navy museums often have like a complete bridge set up in the museum that I really like, where they just take all the equipment off of a bridge and they set up in a space in a building that looks like it. So something like that would be an idea. Some of the things at the museum we're doing are our signing wall, which is one of my favorite things. It started well before I started working here, so I can't take credit for it. But our signing wall, we have veterans of the ship, when they come and visit us, sign a wall. That wall is all able to be unscrewed. So if the ship is no longer able to operate, we can unscrew that entire wall, take those names, that connection to our original crew, out of that space and put it in any sort of traditional museum we want to. Likewise, we are collecting artifacts relating to the submarine New Jersey, SSN 796, and the Battleship New Jersey BB-16. The first Battleship New Jersey was not preserved as a museum ship. She was sunk by aircraft in a test. She was sunk by aircraft in weapons tests. The submarine New Jersey almost certainly will not be able to be preserved as a museum ship because she's nuclear powered. And so far, Nautilus is the only nuclear powered warship in the United States that's been preserved as a museum ship, and she and Savannah are the only two nuclear powered ships that have been preserved. So it's unlikely that a Virginia-class fast attack submarine is going to be preserved. So we are working on collecting artifacts relating to them so that their story can be continued to be told in the future. And likewise, if this ship is not able to be preserved one day, we hope that we'll be able to create another museum or work with another museum that would be able to tell this ship's story. Have you ever been to the South Dakota Battleship Memorial? Let us know in the comment section down below. What objects off of New Jersey would you want to see preserved if something happened and the ship could not be saved anymore? The helm, Tomahawk missile launcher? Let us know in the comment section down below. Remember, for today's episode, you can support the Battleship South Dakota Memorial at the link in the description below. Voting for them will help them earn $50,000. Battleship New Jersey receives operating support from the New Jersey Department of State, also from a number of other businesses and private individuals like yourselves. We really appreciate your support, and you're supporting our other partner organizations. You can also support us by liking, sharing, and subscribing so more people find about the museum and our channel. Thanks for watching.